rage he had. When we come back, we're going to hear from Alexander Bachman, and let's just go through and dissect all the issues in a moment. But Alexander, again, his website is alexanderbachman.com. Lots of things posted there. We'll have replicated on our site. Amazing issues. We'll be back in just a minute. It will most likely be a nuclear device, not a suitcase nuke, but a container-sized device. And there's a number of target cities that I have the short and long list. And again, it's interesting that the cities that you mentioned in the list that they were saying are very likely to be hit, 5 to 7 cities, are actually in this list. And why don't you run through the list first and then tell us why and what sources of information you have that there's a grave danger. By talking about it, by the way, I believe we've done it in the past. We've stopped it from happening because we said, if this happens, we can't use Napolitano's excuse that they can't pick up the material. They fly aircraft over every city in the Western world every week. They have space-based imaging. They can see it through lead shielding. There's no excuse for a nuclear device coming in a container on a ship or across the Mexican or U.S. border. There's no excuse. And so they want a terror activity because they're going to blame it on the loose nukes from Waziristan so they can invade Pakistan. Because if there's going to be an attack on Syria and Iran, there will be an invasion of northern Pakistan to get those Waziristani nukes. Guaranteed. This is a, I call it, thus saith the Lord. If they do this, they will be invading. And they already have special forces up there. The so-called false attack against Osama bin Laden really kicked off the Pakistanis. They knew it's a lie, and they know that it's winding up to an American invasion to get a hold of the Pakistani nuke facilities. Please tell
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, we decided to write an article because there's so much information going on and chatter within the intelligence community where we have credible information, highly credible information from direct sources about the possibility of a detonation of 5 nuclear weapons.
Which cities are the ones? 5 to 7 cities. What are the cities that are under danger?
Okay, the cities that are in danger from here to September 11th of next month would be Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and possibly either Miami or Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, I would say Miami is higher risk for my list. Las Vegas wasn't on either one of the lists that I got years ago.
Exactly, and obviously we know that they're tracking these Muslim cells. They are Muslim in nature. The FBI is doing a good job trying to monitor the Al-Qaeda base camps in Detroit and elsewhere in the country. And even the FBI in Denver has already issued a flyer to all surplus stores, gun stores, to report any suspicious activity, which we have just reported on and updated the article.
Yeah, they're not just talking about the Muslims. They're not just talking about Muslims. They're talking about any citizens that's getting, more guns or ammo or even food supplies. So to me, it's a more harassment of the citizens that are getting ready for a possible breakdown of society rather than dealing with Muslims, because they know darn well that a large amount of the traffic coming across the Mexican border are truckers carrying unstable loads that are not checked, and there's a number of Muslim, quote, terror groups, and many of these, of course, are probably our Al-Qaeda, just like the Benghazi terrorists are former graduates of Camp X-Ray. So they darn well know and are tracking these people. It's almost like the Fast and Furious where they dump thousands of guns across Mexico and they kill our border guards, and they darn well know that the next thing likely to happen is they're going to foster and not prevent and make certain the material is present so they can have nukes go off in U.S. cities. And I've been warning this for years that Oklahoma City was nuclear. I was the exit examiner. I've been blocked repeatedly for the last almost 7 years now doing testing of the World Trade Center debris, which I have and have more access to, very high quality debris. And the next major event is going to be a nuclear terror event and or also the release of a pandemic, just like this movie Contagion that's coming out, I think, September 9th. So please continue.
Yeah, when we put all the pieces together, we can form a clearer map of why there has been a massive movement of trains by the U.S. military seen and film in Oregon, upstate in New York last year. They've been moving a lot of armored vehicles and troops into specific regions of the country because they're preparing for an event. We have also information from people within the Kuwaiti embassy in Los Angeles that are prepared for something, quote, of biblical proportions happening in September in the Middle East?
You told me something very specific about it. You said that the Kuwaiti embassy were told that they were going to give a warning to get out of L.A. If there's specific. They haven't been told yet, but they said to be on alert and be ready, weren't they?
Yes. They are on alert and ready.
The other thing that people have to understand is that these are not just the regular troop movements that occur every summer with war games. It goes beyond that. We're looking at something that is preparing for something really bad. They know that the Israelis have said, if there is a declaration of the state of Palestine in Israel by the United Nations, it will immediately mean an absolute guarantee of war. And if there's not a peace treaty and something stopped by the United Nations and defanging Israel, we're going to see Israel attack Syria and Iran, and you know the Americans will be hauled into it with a war, also an invasion of northern Pakistan. That's a guarantee. No more oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. No more oil coming out of the Gulf of Aden. A complete crash of the world economy because Indonesia and China and Japan rely on oil more so now since the Sendai earthquake that knocked out their nuclear reactors, and only 19 are partially operating out of 55 reactors. So an attack in the Middle East will, as Lindsey Williams says, he'll be back on the program, means Economic-Geddon, means nuclear war in the Middle East, and almost certainly an attack on Damascus, Syria, and we're looking at some very dangerous times here.
I think it's going to, if they don't stop this threat adequately, and it goes hot, as we say, if it goes real, I mean, the scenario is going to be horrible. In fact, we're talking about millions of people dying.
They want to make Obama look like a hero, so they're going to use I call it the Bush effect of 9/11. We took somebody, a bumbling idiot, made him look like a hero, and he posted for the next number of years simply on the fact he's going to get them terrorists. In his broken West Texas accent, even though he's an Ivy Leaguer. So we're dealing with a situation that's a little extreme here. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but the risk is increasing from, on this terror scale from orange to red. We're at a much higher risk now when we have these reports from inside the CIA, from these reports from the FBI, abnormal troop movements, and now the Kuwaiti embassy. So there's a lot of reports converging telling us that by September things are going to get hot. And
we have people within FEMA.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have people within FEMA saying that they've been trained specifically in the last 2 months that they are, quote, to separate the contaminated bodies. This person was trained to remove the sick and injured. He was told that he was going to be working for FEMA, that he is FEMA. He said that there will be radiation contamination, and he was also trained for multiple natural disasters. He was told these events could happen any day now, end quote. So we know that something is going on. The FEMA operation, the Rex 84 documents, the national directives of continuity of government, the COG, all this is coming together, coalescing very quickly, Dr. Deagle and Chris, into an event of enormous proportions if something is not done about it and reported adequately. That's why we put out the article
I know
at AlexanderBachman.com.
Exactly. He did an amazing job. AlexanderBachman.com. Steve Quayle's come out. Now, of course, Steve has a lot of contacts, and he's, I think he's averted actually a lot of terror activity by blowing this because he has lots of good contacts. That's what we're trying to do, again, and I'm reporting it because there are times when I think some people say, well, Steve is, kind of crying wolf. But in fact, I think when we in the media, and Steve's been at it a long time, blow the whistle on these issues, we actually stop it. So people say, well, nothing happened in September. Maybe it's because on the Neutral Medical Report, we had Alexander Bachman, we had Chris Harris, we had Ann Morrison. I talked earlier today to John, and he said he thought it was like a 50-50 chance. I think the chances are more like, I'd say, 75% that something really bad's going to happen. That'll be a nuclear event. And it'll be in one or more cities. They want to clamp the country down. The bankers are failing. The stock market's gyrating like crazy. Stock market's up one day, down the next. Overall, as Bob Chapman says, we're heading for Economic-Geddon. And the only way out for the globalists is to start a war and have martial law.
And to make things worse, Obama last Wednesday had this iftar dinner with the Muslim community, and he said, Islam has always been part of our American family. And he had a special dinner with Muslim people inside the White House, saying how beautiful Islam truly is, and that we are all
Well, he was
children
raised
of a loving God, no matter what religions we are.
Yeah, well, he was raised as a Muslim in a school in Indonesia. Of course, he's not an American citizen. It's funny. We have this non-American citizen who's a former CIA operative, sheep-dipped, probably, as you see the scars on his head, probably chipped, too. Was devoid of a conscience because he pushed, what they call the suction curettage abortion, which